UFC 325. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure you share the video too. And also note I'll be live for the entire card Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the fight companion. And let's get into the first fight on the card. Flyweight finale for the road to UFC. It's Namsrai Batbayar versus Aaron Tao. I'm going to predict Aaron Tao gets a win. I feel like Namsrai is a little more wild than Aaron Tao is and has some more openings, which is, kind of crazy to say because if you watch Aaron Tao's style, it's kind of like overhands, big pressure power shots, a little bit of slickness at times with, his guard and how he'll not really throw jabs, but at times throw more, technical shots. A lot of the time, though, it's him looking to explode with power and range and close that gap and rip hard shots. I feel like Batbayar does something similar, right? He's got a weird style, especially when he is at long range. Kind of almost looks like some like traditional wushu karate or some shit. And he is a little bit awkward out of southpaw, but, can switch stances up at a fair rate. But it's just, he loads up on a lot. Like where I'm saying is like he has this like traditional martial arts style from the outside. Then they get in range and he's just swinging wild fists like any other slugger. So Batbayar is definitely a brawler. And he's fighting another brawler in Aaron Tao. I got, Aaron Tao, 32 years old, 7 years older. Yes, it's flyweight. You can say, oh, well, the younger guy at 25. I think the younger guy has more time to marinate needed before UFC shake, whereas, like, I think Aaron Tao's UFC ready. I think at flyweight, Aaron Tao is getting a UFC contract. I think he's getting probably a hard-fought decision win. Namsrai Batbayar sits in the pocket and slugs hard shots. Same thing goes for Tao. I expect a fun one. What I really think is going to happen between the two is a good matchup. Physically strong guy in Aaron Tao. He's pretty jacked, too, for flyweight. Batbayar likes to impose his will and, get in your face, close the, gap and take fights to the ground and use his physicality and work from top and work for submissions. I don't see him doing that efficiently against Aaron Tao. I could see a takedown land for Batbayar. I can see Tao back up. I can see a takedown land for Tao, Batbayar back up to the feet, So I expect it to be a pretty tit-for-tat fight. I'm going to say Tao able to get it in a competitive slugfest. I'll expect this fight is actually pretty good to start the card off. Now, technically, it's a UFC 325 road to UFC fight, like not actually on the 325 card, but it is a 325 fight, even though it's categorized as road to UFC. Of course, I'm going to cover it. Odds for the fight. Batbayar is -125. Tao is +105. I'm not sleeping on the underdog on the Aaron Tao side. I'm going to have faith that he's able to pull out the W. Anything on the prop side, I don't think we have much. Over 1.5 -160. You got an underdog Aaron Tao call if you want to bet on this, which is high risk. This is like contender series betting. I'm going to equate it to a similar level of risk factor. You want to go for the over 1.5 -160. I do think they are live to go into the later stages, but both guys willing to throw caution to the wind and, go for reckless brawl, a little bit of reckless abandon on both sides. I trust in Tao's durability. I'm going to go with the +105 dog. Maybe it goes over 1.5 and he gets under the cars. Nonetheless, I do expect us to have a pretty good fight to start off UFC 325. And we'll say flyweight road to UFC winner is Tao. Next fight on the card, bantamweight road to UFC finale, Sulangrangbo versus Lawrence Louis. I like Sulangrangbo. He's actually the cousin of Sumadarji, which I thought was pretty wild. And his striking is better than his cousin's already. Sulangrangbo is a prospect to watch. He has such an efficient kickboxing game. It's like an effortless way of throwing shots out and finding, clean shots too, like clean combos. He's not just like a flurrying, peppering puncher type. It's like clean combinations that hit with serious impact. He's precise on the feet. He's got a pretty well-timed uppercut that I actually could see landing here against Lawrence Louis. Lawrence Louis, he's a very awkward striker. You see City Kickboxing is the gym. you envision like an Adesanya style, right? That a lot of the guys from City Kickboxing have, at the very least, that type of guard. No, not Lawrence Louis. Lawrence Louis comes with a very like high, tight tuck guard, almost like a peekaboo style. It's awkward as he closes the gap with pressure and, big right hands. Does have pretty good like stalking forward pressure into clinch work and has a good ability to take people down and control. Is definitely a guy that's willing to spam it a little bit. So it's like an annoying wrestling style at times. Definitely pressure focused fighter. Whereas Sulangrangbo is the technicality, is the precision, is the clean striking. He actually emulates more of what you'd expect from a City Kickboxing fighter than you see with his opponent, Lawrence Louis. Sulangrangbo seems like he's from that team. I like Sulangrangbo's flow. I do. It's a crisp stand-up style. He's got a really fast rear uppercut that he lands with good timing. He also has nice body shots. He can even land body uppercuts, which, only high-level strikers are finding clean shots like that to the body. I'm telling you, Sulangrangbo, the dude is 20 years of age. If there is anybody I have ever had hope for that could actually be good in the UFC from this damn Road to UFC show, it's going to be him, Sulangrangbo. The Road to UFC has yet to really make any viable contenders. Normally at the very best, you get like mid-level guys. Maybe Sulangrangbo changes that at 20. 10-3 as a pro. Started off his fighting career 1-3. Okay, so a lot of balls on that, turning it around and going on a fantastic 9-fight winning streak. And I expect him to look pretty good here. My prediction is going to be Sulangrangbo. I think he's going to find the KO. I think he's live for it. Now, Lawrence Louis, we're going to find out everything about the chin. He's been dropped before. He's been hit hard in the Road to UFC quarterfinal, I believe. And the last one, he was able to knock out a guy that, was expected to show him stand-up. But no, instead, it's Lawrence Louis landing the bomb. Lawrence Louis, he doesn't quit. He's got that grit. So, Sulangrangbo got to be ready for hard 3 rounds. I anticipate he will, but I do think his timing could lead him to like a big knee to the head as, Louis is potentially looking to close the gap with a takedown or ducking or maybe an uppercut. I really like that uppercut of Sulangrangbo. It's good timing. And I think Lawrence Louis could walk into something like that and end up looking at the lights. So I'm going with my guy, Sulangrangbo. Minus 170 for Sulang, plus 140 for Lawrence Louis. I'm hoping that we got one that ends up being like a contender on the rise. I really think it could be him. Over 1.5 plus 111. Fights expected to finish. I'm going to say it's going to. I think first 2 fights to start this card off, good sluggers. Good slugfest. And I'm going to go with the Sulang side. And I'm going to say he gets the hand raised. So Sulangrangbo to go out and win and become the Road to UFC bantamweight winner. And at 20 years old, technicality is there. Cousin is already in the UFC. I think we got bright things in the future of the Sulangrangbo fighting career. And I, for one, will be excited to watch it all play out. Next fight, Sebastian Szalay versus Kiichiro Nakamura. I'm going to favor the Aussie. I'm going to go with Sebastian Szalay to get it done. Nakamura, it's a weird one for me with Nakamura because he does look sharp from the outside. Long range, striking style, wide base. Said that Conor McGregor is his inspiration. I know the team on the fight broadcast for one of his Road to UFC fights is really hyping it up. I don't necessarily think it looks that much like McGregor, but wide stance, relatively slick from the outside. A karate-esque southpaw striker with good timing, He does rip some decent combos inside too, and I'll give credit to Nakamura. He's not just one of those guys that is from the outside and trying to run. No, he's trying to pressure you too. He gets up dirty in close range and can make it like a dirty boxing fight and slug it out. I think that Szalay, a little more seasoned, right? Only 3 more pro fights, but on a good circuit over in Australia, right? Their eternal MMA champ. And I feel like he's going to be able to get some good boxing combos off on the inside. He's going to close that gap, right? Another element of Nakamura, though he does have that good rangy style, he doesn't have amazing distance management, which I think is something that, needs to be shored up in his game. And against a guy like Szalay, he's eventually going to have the gap closed on him. And from that close range, the red zone, I think Szalay is a little bit sharper with hooks. And makes sense, right? He's got a 66-inch reach. So with the short arms, bit of a hook specialist. Showcased some power in his last fight. The big knock on him was he doesn't finish fights, showed some heavy hands. He's shown power before, though. Good body work in that last Eternal MMA title defense. He can rip some punch combinations in close range, has the 5-round experience too, comfortable out of both stances. So let's say Nakamura is finding some success, with body shots, with, kicks, or maybe even attacks the legs a bit, comfortable out of both stances. I like for Szalay, who I do feel like is a little more hands focused. I'm curious to see how they tangle in the grappling. I just see Szalay. It's a little bit more physically imposing in the grappling side of things, a little bit more physicality, but I don't think Szalay is going to like blanket Nakamura on the ground. And I certainly don't think that he can, just take him down with ease and take him down at will. I don't think that's necessarily the case here, but I do favor Szalay to get it on the scorecards. I think it's a competitive fight. I think there's moments for both. I think Szalay in range does good work. I will say there's a world where Nakamura could snipe him with a big straight as Szalay looks to close the gap and throw hard shots, but I'm going to favor the Szalay side. In a close one, I'll go with him, and I think the bookies are onto it. It's a 50-50 fight. -113 for Szalay, Nakamura -107. 31 versus 27. I'm going to say that the few more years of age and the 3 more pro fights, especially at a decent level in Eternal MMA, they outweigh the, Asian regional circuit. A lot of the lower tier, leagues there, guys are racking up some wins. Granted, Nakamura is Japanese. In China, a lot of those guys have a ton of fights. Nakamura not as experienced, but I don't know, like the levels of competition. I know that Eternal brings a standard, right? We've had guys come from Eternal MMA into the UFC. You got Sebastian Szalay, who's been fighting in Eternal for his, almost entire fighting career, and they bring good prospects. And he beat Bargain Yizha, who was a finalist on Road to UFC at bantamweight back, was it a season or two seasons ago against Yu Sang Yu, I believe. I'm going to say that Szalay is ready to get it done. And I say hard fought win. And odds are about even for a reason. I expect a competitive fight. I'm going to favor the decision side. Now, you're gambling on Road to UFC. You got an over 2.5 at -110. You're playing with fire. I wish you the best of luck if you want to throw down on it. My analysis of the fight is Szalay on the scorecards. Both guys can have moments. I think Szalay has the bigger and better moments. And I'm going to say he's getting the hand raised here. And he should become the featherweight Road to UFC winner. Next fight, we have the lightweight finale for the Road to UFC. Dam Mar Phan versus Sang Uk Kim. Street Buddha versus Frogman. I give credit where it's due. This is a battle of great nicknames. Like, I love the nicknames for both of these guys. I don't know who the hell comes up with Frogman for Uk Kim, but it works. And Street Buddha is just perfect. I'm going to favor Street Buddha, Dam Mar Phan. I think he's the better grappler. He is younger too, and you might be looking at you were talking about the age in this other fight as an advantage. I don't know. I'm looking at a 32-year-old Sang Uk Kim, and he kind of fights like a guy that's in his mid-20s, if that makes sense, if you know what I mean, right? So there's seemingly more holes to be closed for a 32-year-old. I think Dam Mar Phan is a little bit more farther along technically. But on top of that, being as young as he is, how many improvements does he make month to month, right? 5 months since his last fight. Dam Mar Phan is a good grappler, an annoyingly good grappler, right? He's got very good clinch work, solid takedown abilities, good control from top position, good back takes, submission threats for sure. Very good, with the duck under to get his opponents down when, he'll slip shots, get under him, drag him down. The body lock is his money zone, and he's real strong when he hits the ground. On the opposite side, Kim is kind of a bit of a reckless pressure fighter. Kim has okay hands, rips some power and range. He actually is the Korean version of a Navy SEAL. So there's going to be a lot of grit. I don't think he's quitting easy. I just think Dam Mar Phan is probably winning the positional battle. I can see Dam Mar Phan taking his back. I don't think he's going to end up locking the sub in, really. I don't feel confident in calling a finish for the side of Dam Mar Phan, but I think he's live to get it on the scorecards here. Note that both of Dam Mar Phan's losses are to Quillian Salkilld. Kind of wild, right? And Quillian Salkilld on the main card of this same UFC 325 event. Fan, he's on the cusp of UFC level. I got to just keep it a buck, though. If I had to place a bet, do either of these guys thrive in the UFC? I don't think so. I don't. I think Don Marfan at 25, so you can argue there's a lot of room to grow. I know for a fact at 32, if Kim somehow is to win, I don't see him with a successful UFC career coming. I think that Don Marfan also, his stand-up is okay. He's got decent body teeps, decent straight shots, but bread and butter of his game is definitely the grappling, and I favor his grappling over Kim's. I want to say I favor his distance striking over Kim's striking overall. Like if they're in close range, I think that Fan will get a hold of him. If they're in long range, I could see Fan land his shots. Kim, very much so the break you pressuring style, but he's dealing with a guy that's better at grappling. So I just don't think that style is going to be all that effective in this matchup is really where I'm going with it. So I'm going to go with Street Buddha, Don Marfan to win. And he's a minus 170 favorite to get it done. Sang-Wook Kim plus 145 as the underdog. Over 2.5 rounds, sitting at minus 150. I do think they're pretty live to go over 2.5. Wook Kim never been finished before in his fighting career. And, the guy being a former Navy SEAL over in Korea, I think there's a lot of respect to be had on it. Now, 3 submission wins for the side of Fan, but he's got more, decisions than he does submissions. And I don't think he's knocking Wook Kim out either, really. So I'm going to say Don Marfan scorecards. With the reach advantage, could have some striking moments. I think Wook Kim makes it tough. He's going to look to close the gap with bombs. I'm sure he lands a couple of big shots. I'm sure there's competitive moments in the fight. I don't think that this fight is that high level, though. I think Don Marfan's going to get into the UFC, but I'm telling you, man, I compare the Contender Series talent at lightweight to this. I think Contender Series blows it away. So, yeah, Don Marfan, he'll earn a contract, but I have my doubts around the Aussie in this one here. Let's keep running. Let's get to our next fight, which, starts off the actual UFC fights here. It's Kaan Ofli versus Yizha. Speaking of road to UFC, we got a road to UFC winner in Yizha versus an Ultimate Fighter finalist. I'm going to go with Yizha. I think Yizha is the better striker between the two of them. He's not a striker, though. I think it's easy to just watch his last fight, and people that haven't watched more of his career are going to fall under this assumption that Yizha is just a boxer. Yizha, he's got some hands on him. He's a tricky southpaw. He definitely has power, but he was fighting Weston Wilson, so he walked him down. You know what I'm saying? You're not necessarily going to do that, even against a Kaan Ofli, who's not known for his stand-up, but isn't awful anywhere. Definitely is a solid wrestler. Kaan Ofli's game is wrestling, but the problem is he got out-grappled by Muhammad Naimov. How good at wrestling is Naimov? He's decent enough. I think Yizha has a good ground game that could stifle the ground game of Kaan Ofli. And then I look at the striking. Yizha is better at boxing than he is. Yizha has faster hands. Yizha has better kicks, especially to the legs. More power, too. I think that Yizha is the more complete fighter, whereas Kaan Ofli is the pressure grappler. And he's fighting a guy in Yizha that has how many submission wins? 14? It's not like Yizha lacks in, the jiu-jitsu game. So I feel like what's Kaan Ofli's pathway here? It's kind of lay and pray, chain wrestle, control against the cage. But I think Yizha could also take Kaan Ofli down. And I think Yizha could rock Kaan Ofli on the feet. If there's a knockout, I'm saying it's Yizha winning. I'm going to say that Yizha takes this one home. I think bigger and better shots land for him. I think he can surprise Kaan Ofli and actually get Kaan to the ground. And I think that Kaan Ofli's a bit limited. The Ricardo Ramos fight, I'll tell you guys, man. Go and rewatch that shit. I felt like it was rigged. Like, Ramos didn't even defend the rear naked choke. I don't understand Ramos. Ramos is low IQ AF. So I could see him also being influenced to rig the fight. Ofli was a big underdog in that one, too. But regardless, that's irrelevant here. I'm going to go Yizha. I'm going to go better striking. I'm going to go competent grappling game, can defend against the wrestling of Ofli, and maybe even Yizha surprising Kaan Ofli with some takedowns of his own. I could see Yizha putting him away. Kaan Ofli got knocked out bad by Myron Santos, but to be fair, Myron Santos is very good and a high-quality prospect. Yizha, incredibly durable, showed that with Gabriel Santos. I mean, Santos had him rocked, and he was able to survive the onslaught, which I respect a lot. And, he's definitely not dealing with that type of striker in Ofli at all. Plus 161 For Ofli, the side of Yi is what? Minus 168, excuse me. Minus 186. I'm reading it backwards. Minus 186 for Yizha. Not terrible odds. Not crazy wide. And I think a deserved tag. He's been on this road to UFC circuit too for a long time. Like Yizha went through the ringer to get to the UFC finally. Finalist and then winning the show. Minus 200 for an over 2.5. I don't love chasing the over 2.5, but I'm slightly favoring it. My official call is decision or knockout for the side of Yizha. I could see him landing the kill shot and rocking Kaan Ofli, but I could also see a competitive display. Both guys having moments. Yizha outstriking him. Kaan Ofli threatening with wrestling. Yizha finding ways on top, but not getting Ofli out of there. So the prediction is Yizha to win. I'll say via decision, but knockout is a possibility. This matchup here because he is the better striker between the two. And I think that his grappling game and defensive wrestling should hold up and even potentially surprise Ofli because I don't think Ofli's this like amazing wrestler. So Yizha to get it done. Next fight on the card, Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliott. Oban Elliott. I'm going with Oban Elliott. I think Oban Elliott's going to look good here. We saw Oban's most recent opponent, Seokhyun Ko, look real good, dominating Phil Rowe. And then it's like, okay, maybe that loss for Oban wasn't as bad as initially anticipated. I'm not ready to write Oban off just yet. First time I broke this thing down, I felt a slight lean towards Micallef, but now I spent more time on it. I'm like, I think Oban's a little crisper with his hands, a little sharper with his punches, less fat on the strike he throws. I do think Micallef is tricky with those long arms. The distance striking is interesting. He's a little bit awkward out of that southpaw stance too. Does definitely have a solid kick game. Oban Elliott, I would say snappy with kicks to the body, less likely to go high with the kicks. Micallef better at the kicks up high, but I don't necessarily see a high kick KO in this one. I think Oban's the better boxer between the two. Definitely a little faster with the hands, a little more impact with the strikes. You know, Jonathan Micallef also, that Kevin Jousset win, at the time, I had picked him to win, and that was a big deal because Jousset was supposed to beat him, or a lot of people thought Jousset had it. Micallef able to look good winning, but that win against Jousset has not aged well. Jousset, you know, taking L's or took at least one violent L outside of UFC and PFL now, so not as much weight on it. I still respect Oban for absolutely destroying Basil Efez, for taking some, you know, serious, I don't want to say damage against Ko, but for getting dominated by Ko, never giving up on himself, just struggling big time in the matchup. I feel like Oban Elliott should be able to be a little tighter in the stand-up, land some bigger and better shots. I think some body kicks could get through. I think he could potentially hurt Jonathan Micallef. Like he could rock him with a right hand. Like he could hurt him to the body a bit and explode on him. Do think Micallef is going to be tough to put out, and, you know, he's going to have some will to win. But, you know, 4 fights ago, he was knocked out by Adlon Bates over in Hex. So it's not like impossible to put Micallef away. I'm going to trust in the Oban Elliott toughness, and I'm going to pick Oban Elliott to get it done. I think he could be live for a knockout win, but wouldn't shock me on a decision here either. But if you're on the gambling side, you don't have to chase anything. Oban Elliott plus 110. I'm assuming the line is going to start to move the other way. It was even money to then Oban at plus 120. Now it's plus 110. I feel like people are going to bet down Oban. 55% of the people picking Oban Elliott. I agree with the masses here. I feel like don't be surprised if this line flips the other way by the time we get to the fight. I think Oban Elliott is a good underdog to get done this week. I think he's going to handle Micallef. Cleaner and more accurate shots. I see him hurting Micallef with straights and body kicks, and I think those are big difference makers. Over 2.5 is live at minus 200, but like I said, there's a possibility Elliott puts him away. I think Oban knockout is live. If Oban knockout is plus 500, I think Elliott underdog, money line, little sprinkle on the knockout, not a terrible idea at all. Good idea, I'd say. We'll see what the odds open up with props. We don't have them yet, but I definitely like Oban Elliott down the center. I'm going underdog, Oban Elliott. I think Micallef is a little less accurate, a little slower, has a little more fat on his punches. He's like loopy with his shots, and almost it looks rubbery. I guess that's the best way to describe it. If you know what I'm talking about, you'll see it. You know, it's just a little bit of extra fat on his shots. They look a little slappy at times, whereas I think Oban lands cleaner. I think he punches harder. He's faster to the target and tighter with his striking style. And I think that should open some things up. Now, annoying reach advantage for sure. 77-inch reach for Micallef. But I think Oban's going to be able to still outland them and get past that reach disadvantage here. So Oban Elliott, the Welsh gangster, as an underdog, my pick for this one. Next fight, we got Jacob Malkoun versus Torrez Finney. Can you smell what Torrez is cooking? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I can't. I'm going with Jacob Malkoun to win. How am I going to go out and pick Torrez Finney? Like, I guess I can make reasons for why you could pick him, but I'm going to first give you why I think Jacob Malkoun is the better pick. Malkoun, more UFC experience. Malkoun, pretty solid stand-up game. He's got decent boxing. He's not great at boxing, but he can let some punches fly. You know, he has some pro boxing fights too. Now, the base of Malkoun is jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt, grappling, wrestling approach. Does use a lot of jabs, and I'd say, honestly, decent with it. I could see him jabbing up Torrez Finney in this fight. I will say one thing I don't like about Malkoun is, though he's got some boxing in the background, he's pretty stiff. Definitely hittable down the center line. Not the most, fluid with movement, but definitely is active with that lead hand, which I like. I like the jabs, You can see a little bit of, the hands coming together and combos flying, but for the most part, I feel like it's stiff jabs, a couple shots into some grappling, a boxing pressure based approach, not stringing sick combos together or anything like that. But he's a good grappler with good ground and pound, and he definitely walks fighters down. It's interesting, though, because he's fighting Torrez Finney, who's a big ball of muscle, very strong wrestler, freakish control. I mean, his build is just out of this world. He literally is built like a wrecking ball, Sticks to opponents like glue, heavy as a damn cinder block on top of heavier. I'd say he's like a damn anchor, man, 1,000-pound anchor. Training under Daniel Cormier a bit now, which, that's interesting to me, because if there's anybody that could help him to really find shit out in the fight game and improve, it's a Daniel Cormier, who's short and former heavyweight champ with the wrestling base. But I don't think Torrez Finney has the same type of athletic abilities as DC. I don't see it, man. He's a little too muscle bound to be like a DC. And I think Malkoun's a lot faster with his hands. I think he'll be more accurate. I think Malkoun can stop the Torrez Finney takedowns. I think Malkoun can work that jab. I'm going to use a weird comparison. The way that we saw Waldo open up D. Lou with jabs and really just rip at it, mix in some leg kicks, something similar from Malkoun. Force Torrez Finney to miss. Finney shooting sloppy takedowns. I think Malkoun can stop him. People forget, man. Jacob Malkoun gave Brendan Allen a run for his money, was taking Brendan Allen down in that fight. It was close. It was a close fight. Yeah, it was 3.5 years ago, but Malkoun was a dog in that one. And you look, okay, it's a win against Maximov, who at that time had some hype as a grappler. And then a Cody Brundage fight that he looked like he was on path to stopping in round 1, but back with headshots, it's a DQ. And then Andre Petroski ends up, I will say, Petroski did drop him with a straight right in their fight, or loopy right, I'll call it. Kind of straight, kind of a wide right. I'll call it a wide right in their fight. But still was able to get after him with some shots. And then Petroski ends up getting knocked out, clashing with his hip. And Malkoun never stopped walking him down. So I think Jacob Malkoun is a guy not to sleep on. And Torrez Finney, we just don't know if he's good. I mean, I think he's very limited in MMA skills. He has physicality and he has some wrestling. His striking doesn't look very good. His cardio doesn't look very good. I think Jacob Malkoun's quicker. I think Jacob Malkoun could force Torrez Finney into a more high-paced fight. I think Finney could gas. I think Malkoun could open him up with some big shots. A Robert Valentin split decision. Look how bad Valentin looked against a Tebagate. Now, to be fair, it was 29-28 at best. It wasn't no split decision. It could have been 30-27 for Finney. But in round 3, he was just trying to panic wrestle. Valentin stopped it and landed elbow. So we'll give him the third round. It wasn't a win for Valentin. It was 29-28. Finney, but still went the distance, lost the round to Valentin. I really think that Jacob Malkoun should look good here. The best win on Torrez Finney's resume is the Cam Rowston snooze fest decision. Just kind of laid and prayed him a bit a year and a half ago. Malkoun's a way better grappler than that. Malkoun beat Cam Rowston earlier in his career. I think Jacob Malkoun's live to look good. I don't see Torrez Finney handling him. And listen, A lot of people like Torrez Finney as an underdog. Torrez Finney opened up at plus 210. He's plus 115. Okay. Minus 135 for Jacob Malkoun. I think Jacob Malkoun is clearly better than him. Unless the layoff, and he had bulging disc in his back, I think. And unless, the injury, right, leads to a very, very diminished version of Jacob Malkoun, I just don't see a way that Torrez Finney is beating him. I think Malkoun's going to box him up. Over 2.5 minus 190. I could see a gas Torrez Finney getting stopped by Jacob Malkoun here. Don't sleep on Jacob Malkoun. Rob Whittaker, training partner, not to be doubted. I'm going Jacob Malkoun to beat Torrez Finney, and I think he's live to give him his first pro loss. Next fight on the card, we got Cam Rowston versus Cody Brundage. I'm going Cam Rowston. I love the battle giraffe style. Listen, the striking of Cam Rowston is good. And I know some people can say, oh, bro, but he lost to Torrez Finney. Listen, in that year and 5 months, he's went on a tear. And Cam Rowston, he has a solid grappling game as well. Of course, Torrez Finney kind of able to lay on him, whatever. I'm not going to get caught up in that matchup from a year and 5 months ago too much when he literally destroyed Andre Petroski in the first round. I picked Cam Rowston as an underdog against Brandon Holmes. He stepped in on short notice, and I said, he's going to destroy him. And he made it look easy. He's a sharp blade as far as the striking game goes. He's got the city kickboxing stand-up flow with good strikes from distance, does use that long lead hand well, whether it's to find jabs or whether it's just to throw some feints out there. He does a good job of it. Very dangerous striking, and has a solid ground game to go alongside of it with good BJJ skills. He's a well-rounded fighter, and he's got some length, 6'3", 75-inch reach. Cody Brundage is a decent wrestler with some power in his overhand shots, a little bit of a wild striker. We've seen him hurt how many times, though, and turtle up. If a back of the head shot lands, well, listen, it's going to be a DQ. Nothing for Cam Rowston. Brundage is going to do the smart thing, which is get the hell out of there. I think Rowston is defensively sound enough in grappling to stay safe in, a pressure attack by Brundage, who is probably going to try and take him down. And if they're striking, I expect Brundage to mostly be looking for power hooks and overhands. And I think Rowston can light him up with technical shots right down the center line. And I think we're going to see Cam Rowston knock Cody Brundage out. I think Rowston's a pretty sharp striker, especially for like the more back end of the UFC middleweight division. I think he's going to look pretty good. Now for Cody Brundage, the Mechanico fight ends up being a split decision loss. Kind of could have went his way. Abdul Malik fight, initially a loss, right? Then overturned to a draw. It is what it is on the technical decision. Beat Julian Marquez in a back-and-forth war. He was getting his shit rocked too, though, in that fight. I respect the Brundage activity rate for sure, but I don't think he's getting past Cam Rowston. I think Cam Rowston's going to look good here. I think it's also a showcase fight. At home in Australia, it's a showcase fight for sure. Cam Rowston to land some thunderous shots on the feet, outstrike Cody Brundage, open him up, beat him up, and probably violently put him away. Minus 350. So Cam Rowston is a big favorite here. Plus 285 for Brundage. I know the props are not out yet, but I am very intrigued by Cam Rowston inside the distance. Under 1.5 is minus 125. Not really crazy about the over-under action. I like Cam Rowston inside distance. The reason I say Rowston inside distance is because he does have 7 wins by sub. Right? And Cody Brundage on the opposite side, he's got 2 submission losses, 2 KO losses. Now, he's lost 3 decisions as well, but Rowston, I see finish incoming for him. It just wouldn't shock me if Rowston's beating Brundage up, hurting him on the feet, Brundage turling up, Rowston takes the back and chokes him out or something like that. So there's a possibility of club and sub. I'll anticipate that like a submission line is also stupidly wide because many just think of city kickboxing. Oh, well, Rowston's just a striker. His knockout against Petroski, he's just a striker. But actually, he has a well-refined jiu-jitsu game. And I do think a club and sub could be live in this fight. So if you're on the gambling side and you're a propaholic, maybe that's the call for you. We'll see what it sits at as the week goes on. But I think Rowston is busting Cody Brundage up. Most likely outcome, he's knocking him out. But don't be surprised. I don't know. Something's telling me club and sub, so maybe not most likely. Club and sub is live in this one. I can see Rowston hurting Brundage, getting on top of him, beating him up, and then getting the submission. I'm going to say Rowston sub. Fuck it. Club and sub. I think he's going to hurt him on the feet, then finish him off by submission. Rowston to get it done, and he's going to look damn good doing it. I'm excited as hell for this fight. Next fight on the card. It is the featured prelim of the night. Junior Tafa versus Billy Elekana. Okay, the battle of the Samoans. We got Australian Samoan versus America Samoan, all right? I'm going with Billy Elekana. He's going to get it done. Junior Tafa, listen, he's a fun slugger, right? He throws wild shots. He has some power in his hands, but like, let's just keep it sincere and let's keep it honest. He is probably the most one-dimensional fighter on the UFC roster right now. I feel like that can't be overlooked. His ground game is not good, right? It's never gotten better. He can stop a couple takedowns, yes, but any guy that knows how to chain together takedowns gets him down. And Billy Elekana is a very well-rounded prospect. Fights out of a calculated southpaw stance with a technical kickboxing flow to his attack, and definitely has some really solid grappling skills, a decent wrestling game, submission threat for sure. Even gave Bogdan Gushkov pause on a short notice debut, was able to get him to the ground and, you know, control him a bit. So Elekana not to be slept on when it comes to grappling. I really think there's a clear pathway for him to get this fight to the ground and really showcase the skills there. But I will tell you, he's got power in his hands as well, and he's got a sharp stand-up game. So Tafa, though he has, you know, some professional kickboxing fights and is known for the big power punches that he throws, I could see Billy Elekana working behind an educated jab, finding the chin of Tafa, making him uncomfortable with shots. I could see Tafa gassing. Look at the Sean Sharaf fight. Both guys hands on their knees, just slugging wild shit. Granted, it was a heavyweight fight. I think that Billy Elekana is also better than Tuko Tokos, the most recent opponent for Junior Tafa. When Tafa was booked to fight Ibo Aslan, that was a perfect fight. And Ibo Aslan obviously fought Billy Elekana, and Elekana dominated that one. I think that Billy Elekana is going to look good. And I think he'll get the finish. He just finished Kevin Kristen last time. He dropped him bad and then was able to submit him. But I think in this one here, could be some striking into the grappling. I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to put the lights out on the feet of Junior Tafa, but I could see Elekana have some confidence in striking, working some shots, mixing in some takedowns, and then getting it to the ground and then showcasing the ground skills. I'm going to go with submission. It seems obvious. Just, you know, Elekana simply a lot better than Junior Tafa when it comes to grappling. And I am not going to pick a guy like Tafa that's incredibly one-dimensional. And the fact of the matter is minus 230 for Elekana when you got a bankrupt grappler on the other side. Like, I'm not saying minus 230 are necessarily like good odds. Like, oh my God, that's so much value, but Elekana could be a minus 350 favorite. I wouldn't have been surprised if Elekana was minus 350 and, you know, the Cam Rowston side was minus 230. You know, those lines seem like they could be flipped against one another. You get what I'm saying? So I think Billy Elekana to show levels when the fight hits the mat makes the most sense here. Could just be positional control and dominance. Under 1.5, listen, it seems risky. I think it's live to go over. It could go under, but reason I say it's live to go over, look at Billy Elekana. He does have 4 wins by a decision. You know, he's won in the second round by sub once before. So it's not like he's just putting people away early, right? Went into the second round with Bogdan after dominating round 1. I think we're going to see Billy Elekana look pretty good. Positional control, some striking, submission threat. Eventually, I think Tafa ends up giving up the neck and gets tapped out here. So Billy Elekana by submission, going to be my prediction to close out the prelims. And I see high likelihood of success for him here against the one-dimensional Junior Tafa. Next fight, let's jump to the main card opener. If you guys are watching and enjoying, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hype the video too. Let me take a sip and then let's get into it. We got Quillian Salkilld versus Jamie Mullarkey. It was supposed to be Quillian Salkilld versus Rong Zhu. And I was so hyped for that stylistic matchup. I was picking Salkilld. I'm definitely picking Salkilld against Jamie Mullarkey. What are they doing to Jamie Mullarkey? Why is this happening? I mean, Quillian Salkilld just violently chinned Nasrat Haqparast with a disgusting head kick in round 1. Jamie Mullarkey got done dirty by Nasrat Haqparast. Okay, he got knocked out by him. So I'm not saying MMA math matters, right? And this is cool for Salkilld, right? Because he gets to take out like an Aussie OG in Jamie Mullarkey. But Come on, man. There's levels to the game. Salkilld is an absolute blue chip prospect to keep an eye on. Has a very clean striking game, technical kickboxing from range, good timing on his punches and kicks, knockout power in his hands, dangerous dexterity in the legs that can lead to knockouts with his kicks as well. And on top of that, he's a really good grappler. We were talking about Dom Marfan, who's on this card. Salkilld was able to out-grapple him and submit him. He's known for the ground game. Salkilld, good wrestling, good grappling control. But the thing is, in a matchup like this, I think, opening up the main card, UFC 325 on Paramount, Salkilld with the striking is what sells. And I think that's what we're going to see here. Jamie Mullarkey, very upright with his striking style and absolutely is on the stiffer side, really lacks head movement. That's kind of been a knock on him for years. It's gotten a little better over the years, but just doesn't have great reflexes, isn't very defensively sound, gets hit a lot. He's kind of like a plank, He's got a bit looser, but he's still upright like a damn plank. And I really feel like he's going to be a sitting duck to some headshots here. I think straights are getting through for Salkilld. I think we're going to see Mullarkey busted up early, and I think Salkild's knocking him out. Probably first round KO. I don't expect it to go very long. I think that Mullarkey is, just a little bit too open for shots against a kid on the rise with very good precision. Salkilld down the center with straights on the money, right? Jamie Mullarkey, what's he going to do here? He's going to blitz and try to look for a knockout. Is Jamie Mullarkey going to wrestle? I see Salkilld stopping the takedowns. I see Salkilld with a chance of getting to a dominant position if even Mullarkey is the first one to engage in the grappling department. I think there is a vast level difference between the two. We have Jamie Mullarkey that's like holding on to the UFC career by a thread, and we have Salkilld that is absolutely rising here in the UFC lightweight division and is 1,000% an Australian prospect on the rise and somebody that could become a top 15 contender sooner rather than later. Mullarkey's last fight, it was a Rolando Bedoya win, able to outwork Bedoya, but Bedoya is not good, and then before that, Ruffy knocks him out. Hawkpross knocks him out. Gets a John McDessie decision. McDessie, past his prime, been on the UFC roster for a long time at the point. Decision win. That's cool for, Mullarkey. Naimov knocks him out bad. Naimov's a damn featherweight. You understand? I really think you look at this fight and it's, okay, Salkilld wins by knockout. What minute of round one is it? That's really the question that I have here. I'm going Salkilld first round KO. I think he should absolutely dispatch of Mullarkey, and the odds are complete reflection. Minus 800 for Salkilld, not even close. Plus 575 for Jamie Mullarkey. It's not competitive. And it's not a competitive fight. It's going to be a complete blowout. Under 1.5, minus 145. Yes, I think fight ends in round one. I think Salkilld is going to have a field day on Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey is simply put defensively inept. That's the truth of it all. Defensively inept versus somebody that is a very offensive striker with accurate strikes, with KO power, and a good ground game. Where's the flaw in Salkilld? We haven't seen it yet. And I definitely don't think Jamie Mullarkey would be the guy to expose it. So Salkilld, not only to win, but I'm going to go Salkilld to make it look easy. He'll knock Mullarkey out. Next fight on the card, we have the return of Tai Tuivasa, and he fights Teixeira. Tai Tuivasa was battling obesity just months ago. He was well over 300 pounds. And now he's fighting a 6'7", 260-pound giant Brazilian heavyweight prospect. I'm picking Teixeira to win. I think Tai Tuivasa is washed, man. Now, prime Tai Tuivasa was a gangster. The Tuivasa that fought Ciryl Gane was a savage. But, man, that's 5 fights ago, 3.5 years ago. And we've seen loss after loss after loss after loss. 5 losses in a row for Tuivasa. I just can't look past that, man. I don't know where he's at. He definitely has big pressure in his overhand shots that he can explode with, right? Now, at one point, for the build that he had, he was a pretty athletic heavyweight. Got a good chin, but very hittable at this point here, and he's fighting like an explosive athlete. Teixeira has the freakish length and the freakish height. 83-inch reach, so one of the longest reaches on the UFC roster. He's going to have an 8-inch reach advantage here. I expect him to connect clean with some straight shots. Now, We saw Derek Lewis get to Taliesin Teixeira last time, drop him and finish him in 35 seconds. It was a big shot from Derek Lewis, and as bad as Derek Lewis looked this past Saturday against Waldo, we have to also remember, like, the stoppage was strange. Teixeira was recovering. Granted, grabbed the cage to try to climb it up to get back up to his feet, and then Herzog calls the fight. Very strange situation. There's 35-second win for Taliesin in his debut, 35-second loss for Taliesin in his second UFC fight, in the sophomore appearance. Then you look at him get a, sub 2-minute knockout against Arthur Lopes on Contender Series. What I'll say is there is accuracy on the straight punches of Taliesin Teixeira. There is knockout power in everything that he throws. He is very calm for a young heavyweight at 26 years of age. A little maybe too calm against Derek Lewis, and that's why he got caught. He seemed to hurt Derek Lewis with a straight, but Lewis ends up faking him out and then catching him with the big left hook. He got faked out by D. Lew. It is what it is, the Derek Lewis world. I don't think Tai Tuivasa is able to generate the force Derek Lewis is, regardless of him at one point beating Derek Lewis a long time ago. I think Tai Tuivasa, he can slug some wild shots, but I expect him to get hit with a lot of straight shots. The punches of Taliesin Teixeira should be getting through on quite a regular basis. And I'll also say this, surprisingly fast kicker and surprising dexterity too for Taliesin Teixeira. He can go with some high kicks. He could, if he wants to get crazy, threaten Tuivasa with some high kicks. Can you imagine a head kick KO? My God. I'll say this, though. Good recovery on Taliesin Teixeira. After getting badly rocked by Derek Lewis, he was recovering. He was getting back up, I think Taliesin Teixeira is going to have his way with Tai Tuivasa. I think he's going to knock him out. I think Tai's well past his expiration date. He's not old in years, but a lot of damage, a lot of wars, 5 losses in a row. I got to go with the prospect on the rise. UFC is definitely looking to push Taliesin Teixeira as well. Put him in a main event in the second UFC fight against Derek Lewis, and now he's getting a main card spot on 325 against Tai Tuivasa. I think we're going to see Taliesin Teixeira knock Tai out, and he's going to catch him with some nice straights. I think that Tuivasa is just way too hittable and really it's counterable after he throws his wild hooks, and I see Teixeira landing clean on the chin. And I trust him to get the KO here. Definitely. Back-to-back heavyweight favorites that Taliesin Teixeira is also fighting, like fan favorite sluggers. And I think the fan favorite slugger here in Tai Tuivasa this time get knocked out. Taliesin Teixeira KO. And I still think he's a pretty good heavyweight prospect. Looking at the odds, he's a minus 260 favorite. How could he not be? Plus 220 for Tai Tuivasa. Dude, we saw Tai at some UFC events looking enormous. How can I trust this guy to now just be in fight shape and ready to go against an athletic prospect? I just don't at all. So, yeah, give me Teixeira by KO. The odds actually are out. Teixeira by KO, minus 185. They're telling you he can't do nothing with it. My God, man. I was hoping that we'd at least see like minus 110. Teixeira KO round 1. Plus 170, KO round 2, plus 350. It's probably live in the first 2 rounds. Tai's known for a legendary chin, but Teixeira is accurate with some big straights, and Tai throwing wild, getting caught at the end of Teixeira's punches. I just see a high likelihood of him looking up at the lights at the end of it. So give me Taliesin Teixeira, give me knockout win, and the prospect gets a big jump in this one right here. The hype is going to grow for sure if he takes out Tuivasa, regardless of 5 losses in a row. And I think he will. Next fight, feature fight. Rafael Fiziev versus Mauricio Ruffy. I have to do it. I'm going with Mauricio Ruffy. I know the Benoit Saint Denis fight, he got exposed. He was broken on the ground. He was strangled. He's had some time to work his game, training with Volkanovski, 4.5 months. I know the ground game looked bad, but to be fair, Benoit Saint Denis is incredibly strong and is a monster on the ground. And I think BSD has really hit a new level, okay, in the past year than the BSD of old. And it makes sense why many underestimated, me included, BSD in this fight, because Ruffy is a slick striker. He really is the comparison to like a Conor McGregor with the wide karate-esque stance, beautiful straight shots, nice kicks from the outside, incredibly precise, man. Does seem to struggle a bit when fighters crowd him, especially fighters that bring a takedown threat. It's not necessarily, not that we don't see a takedown threat with Fiziev, but it's not a major element of Fiziev's game. Granted, against Ignacio Bahamondes, Fiziev fought smart, mixed in some takedowns, was able to garner some grappling control. I'll say this. I think that Mauricio Rufi is going to look better here. I think Mauricio Rufi is going to get some hype back on his name here. It's not an easy win against Fiziev. I actually think we're going to see that Mauricio Rufi can dig deep, and he's not going to give up on himself. I think Fiziev is going to land some big shots, especially leg kicks. I think Fiziev is going to look to attack that wide base of Rufi. I think Rufi can find some counters with straight punches. I can see Rufi hurting Fiziev with shots as Fiziev has looked to close the range and perfectly timed straights or potentially trying to follow suit to what Gaethje did and catch him with a precision uppercut. I think Rufi can find the hurt option on Fiziev, but I'm not going to predict that he's knocking him out. I think Fiziev is going to end up looking to grapple a bit here. I think Mauricio Rufi is going to show some improved takedown defense. I think Mauricio Rufi is going to show improved patience. I think Mauricio Rufi is going to win a decision. I think it's a hard fight. I think Fiziev and him is going to be like a tit-for-tat, competitive, high-level kickboxing affair. Fiziev comes from the Tiger Muay Thai base. Dude is snappy with body kicks, incredible with body kicks. Rips big punches with, I would say, precise power as well, and very good at mixing it up to the body and head, which I like. Definitely a solid low kick attack, which I anticipate he'll attempt to bring to this matchup here against Mauricio Rufi that likes that wide stance. I think some body kicks could get through for Fiziev. I think Rufi's going to have some moments with straight shots and timing punches. I think that Fiziev is the better puncher in close range, but I think Mauricio Rufi from distance will find some sharp straight shots against Rafael Fiziev. I really think that Mauricio Rufi is going to get a little bit of hype back on his side, man. He's a very fluid striker, and I know the BSD fight went terrible, but we do not have the same level of mauler on the side of Fiziev that we did with Benoit Saint Denis. So I think you look at Rufi in that fight and say, well, he got exposed, right? Maybe for high-level grapplers, like if you said Arman Sarukian versus Rufi, yeah. But against a fellow striker in Fiziev that has some wrestling, but that's not the absolute base of his game, I think we're going to see Rufi look pretty good. I'm thinking he's going to stop some takedowns. I think Fiziev is going to look to mix in some takedowns and be met with some force and counter shots as he looks to shoot. And I think you're going to say at the end of it, okay, Mauricio Rufi's got some rhythm. Not an easy win. I think Mauricio Rufi has to dig deep, but I think Rufi will take 2 out of the 3 rounds. And I think at some point he lands a precise shot that potentially puts Fiziev on the canvas for a moment. I'm going to go with Mauricio Rufi to get this thing done. I'm going to say decision win for Mauricio Rufi. An improved Rufi, a calmer Rufi, and a precise Rufi shows out. -128 for Mauricio Rufi, +108 for Fiziev. Huge opportunity for Rufi after losing to BSD to get this massive fight. I think he can do it. Let's see here. Over 2.5 -160. I'm thinking decision. Rufi by decision, +250. I'm thinking Rufi by decision. It makes the most sense to me. Rufi, more calm, more precise than ever, doesn't overextend himself, looking for the big knockout shot, respects the game of Fiziev. I think Mauricio Rufi, unfortunately, overlooked Benoit Saint Denis because of Benoit Saint Denis' striking deficiencies, and he underestimated how good he was at grappling. With Fiziev, I know for a fact Rufi looks at him as a respectable foe. High-level striking game. When you got high-level striker versus high-level striker, I think the stylistic matchup slightly favors the range advantage for Rufi here. Slightly more precision. Just a bit, especially with the punches. And I think he's going to be able to get past Fiziev in a competitive 3-round affair. I'm going 29-28. I think that Fiziev will win a round. I think Fiziev might shock him with a takedown or 2, but I think you're going to see Mauricio Rufi defending pretty well and able to get back up to his feet. And I think Rufi's going to take it on the judges' scorecards in a competitive striking matchup between him and high-level Rafael Fiziev. I like the fight a lot. It's a tricky one to pick. You can argue Fiziev. You can argue the snapping body kicks and the big punches in range and the takedown threat. You can say, oh, look at the Ignacio Bahamondes win. But I think Rufi is a lot slicker and a lot trickier with striking than the side of Ignacio Bahamondes is, especially against a fellow high-level technician like Fiziev. I think that Rufi style is going to end up being quite effective here. So I'm going Rufi, decision win in this matchup. Next fight on the card. co-main event of the evening. Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint Denis. We just saw Dan Hooker fight. It was 2 months ago against Arman Tsarukyan, and he took the L by submission. I'm picking Benoit Saint Denis to beat him as well. The truth of the matter is, Benoit Saint Denis is a relentless pressure fighter who has a very physically imposing style. He's the definition of a mauler. He's a strong wrestler who has very good top control and does work solid ground and pound, but you've seen very much more of a patient approach by the Benoit Saint Denis side when it hits the ground. Positional dominance and control into submission finishes. Benoit Saint Denis has evolved since the BSD of old. I think he's gotten a lot better. And, he switched teams, and I think it's showing. He's really started to fine tune and refine the skill set. And he seems like a guy that's in the running for a BMF title fight. You look at the most recent performance against Ruffy, or rather against Beneil Dariush. Almost forgot he fought Beneil. Made it look easy. One shot KO is a joke. Nothing there. Fight before that, dominates Ruffy in the grappling. Fight before that, beats Prepelec. Actually, Prepelec put up more of a fight than Ruffy did. But that was the, confidence-building return of Benoit Saint Denis. Massive grappling advantage for Benoit Saint Denis. Massive wrestling advantage for Benoit Saint Denis. And imposing his will seems like a certainty for me in this matchup. Now, Dan Hooker is a very good striker. Dan Hooker's got a good tie clinch. He honestly isn't awful with takedown defense either, but you watch the willingness to shoot for the ghillie as Arman Tsarukyan is looking to wrestle him. I think that's a massive mistake. I hope he cuts that out of his game. Problem is, 2 months? Is 2 months enough to break the bad habit? He's trying to channel his inner Dustin Poirier. I don't see Dan Hooker snatching a ghillie on Benoit Saint Denis. I see Benoit Saint Denis taking Dan Hooker to the ground, dominating him from top position, throwing big ground and pound, passing, controlling, wearing on Dan Hooker. And eventually, I'm going to say that Benoit Saint Denis follows suit to what what Arman Tsarukyan was able to do to Dan Hooker. And I'm going to say that Benoit Saint Denis is going to submit him as well. Dan Hooker's striking is sharp for sure. If they're, just kickboxing, I can see Hooker getting some shots off. I think as Benoit Saint Denis looks to rush and close range, Hooker will land some punches. I expect him to attack the body a bit, try to rip punches to the body, try to mix in some knees to the body, try and elbow Benoit Saint Denis. And I think Hooker's going to land some clean strikes. But Benoit Saint Denis is going to walk through them. And Benoit is not going to give up on the game plan of getting this fight to where he's most comfortable, which is on the ground, where he can absolutely dominate. There is a level difference when they hit the mat. Now, as far as the striking goes, though, Benoit Saint Denis got some pop in his hands. Benoit Saint Denis can crack with some big hooks. He's got power. He's not the slickest guy, but I'll tell you, Benoit Saint Denis has improved in his defensive striking for sure since the earlier Benoit Saint Denis prior to the losses. And I think that the grappling advantage for BSD is going to be way too much for Dan Hooker. So I'm going BSD to win it, using those grappling skills, using his toughness as well, because you got to be tough to take a Dan Hooker out. And I'm sure Dan Hooker defends a couple takedowns, but Benoit Saint Denis isn't going to stop. And I think when they go to the ground, Benoit is going to be so damn strong, Dan Hooker's not going to know what he's dealing with here. Not saying it's going to look exactly like the Islam Makhachev fight, but I see Dan Hooker on his back and just done for. When BSD's on top of him, I don't see Dan Hooker getting back up to his feet. I see him getting his back taken, and I see him getting choked the fuck out. Benoit Saint Denis by sub is the official prediction here. BSD to go out and win minus 330 now. My God, what did he open up at? Minus 400 has come down a little bit. Dan Hooker plus 270. My God. Benoit Saint Denis is a hell of a favorite here. But I see him winning. And I see the grappling control paying dividends here. Saint Denis by submission, plus 160. I say yes. I think Dan Hooker's getting subbed. We know the way to deal with the Dan Hooker. If you're a high-level grappler, high-level pressure wrestler, follow suit what Arman Tsarukyan was able to do. Put pressure on him. Not that Dan Hooker didn't have some moments against Arman. He did. I think that Benoit Saint Denis is going to be able to walk through the fire that Dan Hooker throws at him, get him to the ground, and manhandle him. I really don't think Dan Hooker's ground game has evolved that much. He's a bit better, but he's still going to get completely exposed there. We saw a split decision against Mateusz Gamrot, right? Slugging fists back and forth. Gamrot hurting him with a shot in round one. Both guys hurting each other. it's not like Dan Hooker has the craziest fight-stopping power. You see where I'm going with this? He doesn't have the fight-stopping power, and you're dealing with one of the toughest human beings on the planet in Benoit Saint Denis. You have to knock him out to keep him off of you, because if he's conscious, he's not going to stop. Fight before that, the Jalen Turner split decision in a back-and-forth war. Fight before that, yes, he stops Claudio Puelles, but Puelles threatened him with grappling. And BSD is way more of a pressure savage than Puelles just trying to pull at legs and, leg lock. Puelles is terrible. Yeah, I think Benoit Saint Denis is going to dominate. I think one-sided fight. Unfortunately, I like some Dan Hooker. We all do. I want to see Dan Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett. Maybe regardless of the outcome, the UFC will still consider putting together a Dan Hooker, Paddy the Baddy fight. But man, I think Benoit Saint Denis is going to absolutely get to Hooker on the ground. The sub at plus 160, the sub feels like a damn near guarantee in this matchup. It's similar to the Arman Sarukian fight where I called the submission with high confidence. I'm not saying it's an exact copy of rinse and repeat, but it is something similar. And maybe even Benoit Saint Denis a little more ferocious with ground and pound than Sarukian was against Dan Hooker. So BSD to get it done, get past the Dan Hooker puzzle. And I think if it's a finish and timelines work out, Benoit Saint Denis could find himself in a fight with Arman Sarukian. And I don't think anybody would complain. That matchup would be sensational. So hopefully we get something like that incoming if BSD is able to handle business this Saturday, which I anticipate he's going to. BSD, submission, good co-main event. Main event of the evening. If you guys are watching and enjoying, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hype the video as well. We got Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes 2. They do it again. I picked Diego Lopes last time, and I said to myself, what side am I riding with this time? I think Diego Lopes is going to get at him. Diego Lopes, regardless of the loss in the first fight, okay, had some big success, was able to hurt Volkanovski in round 2 at the end. Granted, as far as the numbers went, yes, Volkanovski was more accurate, but the bigger moments were Diego Lopes hurting Volkanovski in round 4 to the eye and cutting him up with big flurries of shots. Diego Lopes has the fight-stopping power in this fight. And Volkanovski, 9 months older. It's like if there's ever a time that Diego can get to him, it's now. Now, I'll say this. Alexander Volkanovski, even at 37, is incredible. I mean, the jab on point, the footwork on point. He was able to connect with a lot of clean straight shots on Diego Lopes, even mix in some shots over the top and crack that Diego Lopes chin clean. Volkanovski's very accurate with his hooks to the head as well, and he's a hard guy to track down, and he mixed in some wrestling in the fight, especially in round 1. Volk like a monster. Threw Diego Lopes down after pounding him with shots up against the cage. But there was a lot of takedown defense, sharp takedown defense from Diego Lopes. And I think the takedown defense will hold up in this fight. And something you must say about Diego Lopes last time, never stop moving forward. Forced Volkanovski to counter strike a lot. And Lopes was getting close, kept slugging hard shots, kept closing the distance and ripping punches, but ultimately just a little too precise from Volkanovski last time, right? Lopes with that Mexican pressure style boxing, walking forward with the tight and high guard, throwing power in all of his shots, ripping punches. I'll tell you what Volkanovski needs to do is similar to what he did last time. Stay moving, right? Pick his shots nicely, mix in some takedowns, and avoid the big punch from Diego Lopes. But what the difference for Lopes becomes this time is that you can go back and watch that first fight. And if Lopes chose to throw more straight shots, I think he would have found greater success in the fight. And I anticipate this time he's going to look to mix in more straight punches. Okay, I expect more straight right hands specifically from Lopes in this fight. Another element of the fight that I expect more of from Diego Lopes this time, I expect more elbows in close range. I can see him cutting Volk up with some elbows against the cage. He was very boxing focused at first, ripping big hooks, and there were some big hooks that landed. But as he gets close to Volkanovski, I think pressuring him forward and then mixing in some elbows on the inside, he could get to Volk with a big elbow. I could see him cutting Volk open, and that changes the fight. If he can cut Volk early, especially. Volk still seems to have a chin. I know that after, the Topuria fight, especially, many of us, me included, were thinking, okay, that Volk chin might be past its best days. Takes a good shot from Lopes, drop bad, but gets up in round 2. Cut up in round number 4 and rip with some big punches. There was still massive moments from Diego Lopes in the fight. Volk had some moments too, but the true damage, right? The fighter being hurt the most throughout the fight was definitely Volkanovski. Lopes obviously was outstruck and outlanded in the fight. There was more shots from Volk. Volk needs to do something similar to the last time. On the side of Lopes, it could be a hard-fought decision win, but it could also be the kill shot gets to Volkanovski this time. And I really will emphasize, Volkanovski, at times when he mixes up combos and then circles out, he'll pull back, pulling straight back. I feel like if Lopes just trusts himself and just sits on a straight, he could hurt Volk with a straight like he did in round 2, but he could do it more. If you want to get crazy with it, as Volk pulls out a high kick from Diego Lopes, maybe not the bread and butter of his game is the high kicks, but I definitely think he can rip one out there and maybe at the very least forces Volk to think more, oh shit. And that should open up other punches for Diego Lopes. I'd like to see Lopes mix it up to the body a little bit more when it's available, but hard to do with Volk, who's got the shorter stature and works a nice jab and mixes it up to the body pretty well himself. The cardio of Lopes held up beautifully in their last fight, which was a high-paced fight. So I'm not worried about Lopes slowing down throughout the fight. Volkanovski definitely precise in the last one. In this one here, I expect similar precision, but I will add, I think if a clean shot to the chin connects for Diego Lopes, he could shut off Volk. And I think you have to assume after the performance he had against John Silva, the confidence rose for Diego Lopes, especially as good as John Silva looked against a very skillful Arnold Allen. John Silva hit Lopes with his hardest shots and Lopes ate them. Volk does not have that same one-shot stopping power. There is a very low chance that Volkanovski is knocking Diego Lopes out. I don't see it. Whereas on the flip side, everything that Lopes throws is mostly with violent intent, and it does serious damage. And I can see Volkanovski hurt again by Lopes. And if Lopes lands with one more clean shot at a different moment throughout the fight, could end up winning the fight. There's too much of a danger factor in the fight that favors Diego Lopes for me to pick the Volkanovski side. I'm going to predict that this time Diego Lopes gets him. I think he's live to hurt him at some point, maybe even knock him out. But if need be, a hard-fought, scrappy decision similar to the last one, but we see more accuracy from the Diego Lopes side because he's throwing a little bit straighter this time. Just a little bit. Not all. Still ripped some big hooks. There was success with it. But he gets to Volk a little bit more, and you have to bring the question to the table. Is Volk going to be as good as he was that last fight 9 months ago? Another hard camp for the 37-year-old. This is what, his 32nd pro fight? Now, obviously, Diego Lopes has more pro fights, right? But he's only 31 years of age. The 6-year age disparity between the two, Diego Lopes getting better each time we see him. Is Volkanovski still improving? Is he maintaining the skill set? I'm going to say Diego Lopes able to handle him this time. And I'm going to go Diego Lopes and new featherweight champ. At home in Australia, Volkanovski takes the L to Diego. I'm thinking there's a chance of a knockout. I really am. I think Diego Lopes violence first. I think he could catch Volk with something big and blitz him. And what I thought would happen the first time happens this time. Diego Lopes is just more ready for it now. Odds for the fight, Volkanovski a -155 favorite. Diego Lopes a +135 underdog. I'm going underdog in the main event. I'm going Diego Lopes and new champion. Takes out the great Volkanovski. Over-unders, fuck all that. I want to see what the knockout prop is. Lopes by KO +350. Lopes decision +500. I still think Lopes could get him in a 5-round war. If he's able to hurt him, I guess I'll emphasize this. I think that Diego Lopes has to hurt Volk at some point. If not, Volk just cruising to the technical decision, working that stiff jab, ripping the body a bit, staying moving, mixing up some overhands and hooks when need be, but being technical and accurate is, the bread and butter of Volkanovski. He's shooting for some takedowns, even if he doesn't get them, to force Diego Lopes to reset and change the rhythm and momentum of the fight. It could go that way for Volk. But I do believe that this time Diego Lopes gets at him. I think, you're going to see the team has spent some time coming up with a game plan. And after the last one, they're like, okay, we got to him a few times. It was competitive. Volk was still able to get him at the end. But I think Diego can have more moments now. And I'm going to favor that this time he can do it. So I'm going with Diego Lopes to win the belt. And new champion takes out Volkanovski at home in Australia. I love it. Sensational fight. I'll tell you this much, guys. I think UFC 325 is better than UFC 324. And I don't think there's any argument about it. I think 325 is way better. My God. This card is actually quite stacked with some sick fights throughout. And to cap it off with one of the GOATs, Volkanovski, fighting, you know, the star of Latin America, it's good. I'm telling you, I know people are not super hyped for the rematch. You know, a lot of complaints about Diego getting another shot, but I do think the fight's going to be an absolute banger. And I think Lopes can get at him this time. I'm going to specifically say straight right hands. Landing some more straight rights, throwing some more straight rights. Those are going to be difference makers that lead Diego Lopes to finding more success throughout the fight, especially as Volkanovski pulls out. You know, you rip that wild hook, that Volk pull out works. You go straight with it, you land it. Might not knock him out, but it's going to connect. And slowly but surely, more damage will be done throughout the fight. And Lopes will be finding that shot more and more often and might be just the shot that puts Volkanovski away. Diego Lopes and new. I'm doing it. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you think he does it? As far as the method of victory of it, I think he is live to put Volk's lights out. But there's that other side of me that says decision is live through. I think knockout or decision. I'll say knockout first for this one. I'm going to definitely be hype as hell for this Saturday. I'm way more hyped for this card than last week. So I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. I'm really, really looking forward to 325. I know many of you are as well. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the predictions. You agree? You on the same side as me? Are we going Team Diego Lopes? Or are you guys back in the old horse? You think that at 37 he does it like Gaethje did last weekend? Or is Diego Lopes going to make it right this time and take out the former, or rather current champ, the long-standing champ, and make him the former champ? Let me know. Smash the likes, guys. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on the post notifications too. Be sure to hype the video. I'm going to have content all week long, so keep it locked in, and let's bring the thunder for UFC 325. Love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.